Hey there, Honor Guard recruits, the Comics Kid 2099 here to talk about an episode of Green Lantern the Animated Series titled Ranx. If you haven't seen this episode and you don't like being spoiled, then go watch it before I get into the spoilers. You've got time while I do a quick plot synopsis. Hal and friends get a message from the Guardians to go to Ranx. There, the Manhunters are trying to get in, but there's a force field. Razor uses meditation to cut off all emotions so that they can make it past the Manhunters onto the planet, where they find someone who has been sending messages to Hal, the Anti-Monitor. He wants to form a truce with our heroes because even though he is evil and knows it, Aya is worse because she wants to go back in time and remake the universe in her own way. This episode ends with Aya making it onto the planet and Razor realizing that she has to be stopped even if it means destroying her. So this really feels like part one in a two-part story, and usually I tackle multi-part episodes in one video, but since this wasn't labeled as a two-parter, I'm only covering this episode, and as such there's not much to cover here. We get a lot of setup for stuff that will be paid off in the series finale, but I can't really comment on that now, partly because I'm only talking about this episode, but also because even though I've seen the series finale some time back, I don't really remember much about it. So what can I discuss here? Well, I mentioned how silly it was for Hal to be going to bat for Aya because he was given a second chance after his 10 seconds as an Orange Lantern. And here we get to see that Kilowog is not really on board with the we can't harm Aya thing. He clearly sees that she's dangerous, which makes sense. She's done a lot of damage, and it was really weird that not one of these guys was seeing her for the threat that she was. So that was nice to see in this episode. And our character arc of the episode is that Razor finally sees it too. And I should have some feelings here. I really should. In previous episodes, my almost non-existent heartstrings have been tugged by the almost relationship between these two. But this episode didn't quite manage to do anything for me, partly because it doesn't spend all that much time on Razor's character arc. He spends some time meditating at the beginning of the episode to remind us that he trained with St. Walker a little bit around the half point of the season, and then he uses that to get our heroes into Ranx. But we don't get to see Razor really do that much. At the beginning, he says that Aya is redeemable. At the end, he says that she's not. Good to know that her physically destroying half the universe isn't enough to make Razor want to take action. For that matter, we don't get to see Hal or Kilowog do much of anything either. Like I said, this episode feels like half of a complete story, which makes judging it on its own merits very difficult. And if you think I'm being overly harsh, let's look at what our heroes do. They come to Ranx, they enter the planet, they talk to the Anti-Monitor. The closest thing we have to conflict here is a minor disagreement between Hal and Kilowog and Razor about whether they should team up with the Anti-Monitor. Sure, we get lots of explosions and shooting between the entire Green Lantern Corps and the Manhunters, but that feels very hollow when there's no real emotional conflict at stake here. Yes, there's the ongoing Aya arc that's been going on for a few episodes, but that doesn't really have much of a presence in this episode until the last 5 minutes or so. We find out what she's planning to do, and all of our characters finally make a change. This could have been a 5-minute episode for all that happens in it. I know I sound mean, but I can't even meet this episode halfway if it won't bother being a complete episode. I can't recommend watching this episode unless you're watching on a streaming app or a DVD, and in that case you can just watch it and the series finale one right after another, which I am almost 10,000% sure is how they were meant to be watched. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back next weekend to talk about the series finale. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.